Please take a second, pause the video, and read this disclaimer. Today we're taking a look at some patellofemoral pain syndrome stretches. Now, as always, you should only be doing stretching if you've been cleared by a medical professional. The first stretch is the TFL stretch, the tensor fascia latae stretch. The way you perform this is you have your arms out to your side like you're making a T. You put one leg on top of the other like you have me doing here, so the ankle will be on the outside of the knee that you are stretching. So I'm stretching my left leg, my right ankle is on the outside of my left knee, gently pulling that knee down towards the ground. And this is stretching again that tensor fascia latae. This is a muscle that attaches to the IT band. The IT band runs all the way down to the knee. Generally, the purpose behind all of these stretches that you're going to see today are to help the hips be as mobile as they are supposed to be in order to help protect the knee. If you have any sort of mobility restrictions in the hips or the ankle, it's generally going to show up in the knee first in terms of pain. This is because the knee is in between the hip and the ankle and it has nowhere to go. It is a simple hinge joint. It just does one motion, extension and flexion. It only moves in one plane. The hip and the ankle are much more mobile, much better at adapting to forces going through them, and a little bit more complex. So we're going to take a look at some hip stretches today, like this TFL stretch, in order to go in there and try and make sure the hip is moving the way that it should. Because once we make sure the hip is accepting forces the way that it should, there's a pretty good chance that the knee is going to handle it better. That's at least what it has been in my personal experience when I had patellofemoral pain. These are the stretches that I did that helped make sure my hip was moving the way that it should. Now we're going to take a look at this from a different angle here in a second. I'm going to get up, change the mat, and then I'm going to reorient from the side so you can see what it looks like from the side. Now, another important note about the stretching, really can't harp on this enough. 1 minute holds with no pain and gentle discomfort, mild discomfort, are what you're shooting for. 30 seconds here, 15 seconds there, it's not enough. It has got to be 1 minute sustained holds in order to have any sort of improvement in your tissue length. That's what the science says. I do these for 3 repetitions on each side. Sometimes I hold them for a little bit longer depending on how good the stretch is. Now again, arms out to your side making a T. That ankle on the opposite leg, so the one that you're not stretching, this would be my left ankle on the outside of my right knee, gently pulling that right knee down towards the ground. It's just my body weight. I am letting gravity do all the stretching here. Now, you might have to play with where your right heel is. That is, the leg being stretched, that heel might have to slide further forward or further back in order to facilitate that stretch. Where you should feel that stretch is on the front of your hip. The TFL hangs out. It's a little triangular muscle. You can look it up on the internet. And it's kind of on the front of that hip. And that IT band runs all the way down to your knee. So there's a pretty good chance that if you're doing this correctly, you're going to feel it from the hip all the way down to the knee. Again, no pain, no discomfort, just a gentle stretching sensation. If you have pain or discomfort, stop and talk to a medical professional. Numbness and tingling as well. Numbness and tingling is not something that you should be feeling during this stretch. You can tell I'm a little bit tighter on this side. And if you watch my hands at all, you can tell that I am not enjoying this as much. My right hip was definitely a little bit tighter. But now we're going to move on to the next stretch. And this is a pretty simple one. Just going to roll to your side, making sure that your hips are stacked. Bottom leg is going to stay a little bit bent or straightened out a little bit. I keep mine a little bit bent. And it's the top leg that we're going to stretch. So it's just a simple quad stretch. So grabbing your ankle, gently trying to pull that heel towards your glutes. And you're also trying to bring that knee a little bit further back into extension. And this is going to stretch that hip flexor. It's also going to stretch the quad. When the hip flexor and the quad are tight and they are not allowing the proper amount of force down into the knee, or they are restricted in their range of motion, this is one of the things that can show up at the knee. The quad is one of the few muscles that is directly tied to patellofemoral pain syndrome. The other one is actually your glute med. That is one of the muscles on the side of your hip that's responsible for kicking your leg out to the side. But when the quad is not functioning the way that it's supposed to, either due to weakness or to tightness, this is one of the muscles that will show up causing knee pain for sure. A tight quad does not allow the patella to move the way that it's supposed to, the patella being your kneecap, and therefore there's extra tension going on through the quadriceps tendon and the patellar tendon. So doing this stretch is one of the few ones that you'll probably see in almost every single patellofemoral program out there where they're like, you need to stretch your quad, you need to stretch your hip flexors, because those muscles together can cause some issues at the knee. So one of the few ones you're probably going to see everybody agreeing on and performing. Again, no pain, no discomfort, just a gentle stretching sensation. And now we're going to go straight into one of my favorite stretches of all time, the tall kneeling hip flexor stretch. Boom. So you're stretching the leg that is down and on the ground. So for this example, it would be my right leg. Now what you can see here is that my leg is back behind me, almost as if I'm getting ready to kick a soccer ball or a football for a field goal. That's the stretch. You're trying to stretch your hip flexor. That's the muscle on the front of your hip. And in order to stretch that, you have to bring your leg into extension. And you have to try and keep your hips level and your back straight. And so I do this quite a bit because my hip flexors get very tight from sitting all day. And this is, again, one of those muscles that if it's tight, can definitely transfer a lot of forces down to the knee that the knee is not supposed to be handling on its own. When these get tight, it changes how the force through the hip is transferred down to the knee, down to the ankle, etc. Tight hip flexors are the bane of a lot of people's existence, and it is one of the top 3 stretches I think everyone, if they've been cleared for exercises and stretching, should be doing, just based on how sedentary we are and how tight these hip flexors can get and cause all sorts of pathologies, including low back pain, again, knee pain, hip pain, restricted motion. It's just, it is one of the great villains of our time, if you ask me. So we're going to wrap up with that stretch, and we're going to take a look at the Gastroc Stretch. Now, we're going to get 2 different angles of this one. So the first one's going to be here and up close, standing nice and tall, heels off of the edge of a surface, dropping them, and then hinging at the hip, trying to get that stretch through the calves and up into the hamstrings. We're going to take a look at it from a little bit of a wider angle. That's where I'm feeling the stretch. Right there is where I'm motioning. Here it is from a wider angle. So staying up nice and tall, drop those heels, hinge at the hip to get that hamstring and calf involvement. Again, any pain or discomfort, stop, talk to a medical professional. But this is an absolute must for me. My hamstring, they're atrocious when it comes to how tight that they are. But what happens is when the hamstrings get tight, they can also restrict how your knee is moving. They can also impact the physics of forces going through the knee. The next stretch is going to be the Soleus Stretch. And that is going to be focused here on this front leg, heel planted, not coming up, and just trying to bring that knee forward to touch the post in front of me. The soleus is one of those muscles in the calves that a lot of people neglect because they don't know that it's there. It's different than the gastroc heads, and it can get just as tight. And this can impact ankle mobility. And if your ankle mobility is impacted, as we've discussed previously, that can go up the chain and into the knee and impact how the knee is accepting forces. In a second here, we're going to take a look at a wider angle. But again, all of these I hold for about 1 minute. They are pain-free, slight discomfort from the stretch. Any numbness, tingling, or pain, talk to a medical professional. But all of these stretches are designed in order to help forces going through the knee, to make sure that hip is mobile and the ankle is mobile, and that the knee does not have to deal with excess forces and tightness that could be contributing to patellofemoral pain. These are my stretches. These are the ones that I did to help myself with patellofemoral pain syndrome. I hope you found this video educational and helpful. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if this helped you. It means a lot to me to know that other people are benefiting from what I went through. I'll catch you all in the next video.